Hey everyone, it is Saturday, October 11th, 4:30 p.m. I'm on my way to my first listing appointment of the weekend. This appointment came out of, it was a surprise. So I had created a list of for sale by owners that I was tracking over the last couple of weeks. And I've been, following up with them. And surprise, surprise, this couple, they originally put their home on the market, I want to say back in April. And I've called, I've followed up, but I noticed that it actually came off the market a week or two ago. And this time they picked up. I spoke to one of the husbands, and he had mentioned, yeah, they were trying to sell it. I, offered my assistance because then I said, you guys are actually off the market. They said, yeah, we took it off the market. We weren't getting any interest. And I asked some details about the property. The quirk about why I got excited about this listing was maybe there were 2 or 3 sentences, in the listing. Most for sale by owners aren't necessarily very descriptive. That's probably the art and science of real estate. You kind of learn how to describe a property and either embellish or accentuate the positives. They were more like, hey, this is a nice house, it's a bargain, it's for sale for 1.1 million. That's essentially it. I'm barely paraphrasing. But when I spoke to one of the owners, he spoke, passionately for like 5 minutes about, what the features were, how there was actually a double lot, how they actually put a second home on the lot. And I said, a second home? I didn't know that. I was looking at the listing. I didn't see anything that you put on about that. I said, yeah, I guess we didn't describe it very well. I said, maybe that's a reason why you didn't get any offers. Maybe it came across as, too little information for what you're trying to do. So I said, I'd love to come by, this weekend. And they suggested, today at 5. They're about 15 minutes from me, so I'm going to get there about 15 minutes early, just to drive around the neighborhood, get a sense of it, etc. And I told them, this is a low stakes conversation. If it makes sense what I have to say, we can go in a little bit deeper. We can have another conversation. And if what I have to say then makes sense, I'd love to earn your business to list it. But initially, I'm just trying to give value. And if they want to sell it themselves, or they want to go back to selling it themselves, they're free to do so. There's just so little information about the property. I couldn't even begin to offer them, any help without actually visiting the property. Oftentimes with for sale by owners, there's a lot you can do up front. Like, for example, there could be grammatical issues on the listing. There could be descriptions of the flood zones that are factually inaccurate. Like, they can say, for example, oh, we're not in a flood zone, safe. Where, at least for Florida, I'm filming in Florida, there is no non-flood zone in Florida. What they're trying to imply is that they're what we call a flood zone X, which would mean that there's like a 1%, I forget how it works statistically, but essentially there's not an expectation of a flood in that area outside of a 500-year period. So once every 500 years. Concerning the hurricanes we had back to back, were each affecting areas in flood zones, it's not really ethical for an agent to say, a homeowner can say what they want, but it's one of those things where it's surprisingly misleading. It's unintentionally misleading to say we're not in a flood zone. Technically, all parts of Florida are in a flood zone. It's just, is it going to happen every year, every 100 years, or every 500 years? That's how legally the distinction applies, just to keep it simple. But anyway, so they don't even have enough information about that. So I want to go in and get a better sense of the property, the extra lot, the extra house on it, because I went looking into the tax records. There is indeed a second property on it that wasn't listed initially in the for sale by owner description. So it's just one of the things I can do to add value. And it also, just based on the condition of the property, gave me a sense of, is 1.1 million a bargain, or is it severely overpriced or underpriced based on the condition? That's why I wanted to get there early and kind of absorb the neighborhood a little bit, just to see it. But if there are 2 properties which were not indicated in the original for sale by owner listing, and it is a much larger lot, then 1.1 would be a bargain. I did a quick CMA based on that, and it came up, north of 1.3, and that's a big discrepancy. Granted, for sale by owners are usually notorious about overpricing their properties, not about underpricing it. So it might go towards motivation, but considering how little marketing they did, how little attention they got, I just want to, out of my curiosity, I just want to see what the difference, what the problem might be on the property. So ideally, I'll come today. I'm driving there now. I'll be there in a few minutes. I'll meet with them in about 20, and I'll get a sense of the neighborhood, take some notes, and drop off some information for them. And then I'll be back tomorrow or Monday with a more detailed assessment as to what a good listing price would be to get the attention that they want, if they're still very motivated to sell. They're at least somewhat motivated because they invited me. And hopefully at that point, I'll show sufficient value that I'll get the listing. So that's the journey for today. Tomorrow I'm visiting a condo on the water in St. Pete, and I'm visiting their neighbor just maybe 30 minutes before to view it, get a sense of it, and then just compare and contrast, because that individual is also for selling it for sale by owner, but hasn't had anyone interested or any serious interest or action in 2 months, and he's priced roughly $200,000 above his neighbors. So I want to see his neighbor's property and invite him to see it as well. He probably knows exactly what it looks like, but to get a sense of like, hey, your neighbor here has been struggling to sell this property for well over 100 days, and he's $200,000 less than you. If you're very serious about this, we can look at the price, because being $200,000 over, it's not going to get you the property sold. It's not going to make me want to take the listing. I'm not interested in wasting my time or my money, but it's also a way for me just to show value. So again, me bringing it to your neighbor's property to show you what your competition looks like, and at that price what it does. Because being $200,000 over, you're going to help your neighbor sell the property. You want to put yourself in a position where the opposite happens. You're priced so either aggressively or appropriately that people look at your neighbors and they look at you and they say you're the obvious choice. So I want to have that conversation with them as well. So yeah, that's my weekend. And I have another listing presentation for Tuesday, so hopefully that'll go well as well. All right, guys, talk to you later. Wish me luck. Bye.